Hello.
Hello,
Welcome
hello.
to our pilot episode of RTC X. Without any further ado, let's jump into our topic of the week. That is Dustbust, right?
Mhm. Let's go.
Let's do it. Let me share my screen,
Mhm.
and this is the footage that I've presented to you during our teaser of the week. You have this 8 millimeter film footage, which is quite grainy and quite dusty. Cool. So the first thing that usually we do when we are doing a dust bust approach, and the classic is going to be to do just a roto paint node and clone from the frame where we are. So we just clone from an adjacent place, and you just start painting all of these dust hits by hand. uh, and let me show like something like this. You can start cloning, but the problems start when you have something that is a bit bigger, right? Here we are still fine. You can start seeing problems with gradient because we are now on the edge of the frame, and you have this big vignette. So we start having issues here. We need to be very careful where we clone from. So you need to be quite smart and quite careful while doing this. Okay, but let's have a look at one of those frames. Like we have something like this. Okay, this is where the problem starts. So you need to start painting and be very careful with the cloning. Okay, and this is where our solution needs to be smarter, because to start cloning this and having this to work nicely along the way, it's going to be very difficult. Okay, and what better than the plate itself with a clean area, so we can paint from that. Okay, to do that, what I'm going to do here is I'm going to actually stabilize the footage. Cool. All right. Let's jump into a camera tracker, and you're going to be surprised with this because this plate is quite soft and quite washed out. I could stay here for like half an hour trying to find good spots for doing a point tracker. Instead of doing that, let me try something different, which is using a camera tracker. I can just preview the features, and this is where you see how many point trackers are going to be thrown at this camera tracker, and we're going to do them all in one go. Okay, so this is the moment where it does forward and backwards, and we're gonna be killing some time. It's just a few
Yeah,
seconds.
this is the part where you put the food into the oven, and during the cook show, you
and
kind of
you
buy some time.
and you bring another one, right? You bring the cooked one.
Yeah. Ta-da!
We should do some cooking show like this. Yeah, that would be interesting.
I don't think that's my forte or stuff like that.
Oh man. All right. We are almost finishing, as you can
Oh,
see.
the food is ready.
Yeah, the food is ready. Pling! Comes out of the microwave, and boom. That's it. All right. So, what do we have here? We have a few tracks. We don't know if all of them are good or not. Some of them will show up, some of them will disappear, as you can see, like these ones here. They just get away. So, what we're going to do, we're going to our auto tracks, which are these ones. We're going to go to minimum length, and we're going to pull this. Like we're going to choose 81 as minimum length, and this, as you'll see, will kind of highlight the ones that don't stay throughout the whole frame range. Okay, so for those ones, I'm gonna delete and reject these ones, and the ones that I keep are the ones that stick from the beginning until the very end. Cool. So I'm going to select them and right click, tracks, extract user track. And then I'm going to the user tracks, and you see that all my tracks are available in there. With this in mind, I can export a tracker, and this is going to give me a nice tracker with all of these ones. All right, there it goes. And with my tracker available, I can start using this to transform my picture and hopefully to stabilize this and give me a really nice result. So for that, I'm just gonna quickly turn on translation and rotation. Scale is not so necessary since we are not really moving closer. It's just like a big camera shake that is happening in there. Let me just change this to 2. So I'm gonna turn all of this, and this is gonna give me a nice average of this transformation, and I can stabilize the footage. Okay, my reference frame right now is still locked to frame 1, and as you can see, I get a simple stabilization. Cool. This is gonna be extremely helpful when I want to start painting, because now I can steal from frames ahead and frames behind and have no problem where this footage starts moving. So just out of proving my concept, I can now copy this tracker and I can invert my transformation by choosing match move, and I will see if everything goes back to normal. Okay, we shouldn't have any kind of quality loss because we are still working straight on 2 trackers. Okay, all good, all perfect. All right, so this is our first step, and I do believe, Jai, that we have some issues. It's not as
Mm-hmm.
simple as stabilizing it, right?
Yeah, we always want a one-click solution, or even like something that you just quickly will be able to get the job done. But often the case, we need to solve some problems here and there, and they will usually give you some issues, and it's depending on how you problem solve and pick the easier problems. You might not really understand what I'm trying to say, but along the way, this will be much clearer.
Absolutely. All right. Shall I share your screen?
You can share my screen. I'll show what's the problem.
Sure. All right.
Okay, so having to stabilize the footage, one thing we notice is the footage will actually go out of the format. In other words, these areas will be almost impossible for you to use to clone. So what we can do is to either shrink the footage or extend the canvas. So we're going to talk about both of this solution, and let's start with the reformat solution, which is to gain some extra canvas. So how can we do that? So quickly, what we should do is to, okay, let's close the tracker. So I just quickly use the same stabilize concept that Carlos already have. So putting a reformat in at the very start. So this is set to the usual format. So what we want is a new format. It doesn't have to be something with the right aspect ratio and stuff like that. But what we need is something that's much bigger. So judging from the stabilization, maybe we can go with something like 1.25 for both the width and the height, and give it a name. Maybe just call it canvas extended, or anything that you feel that you recognize. So this name doesn't really matter. It's just creating the extra space for you. So having this, we have the format correct, but one thing we need to take note is make sure we are not going to resize the plate. So then we can also turn off black outside and have it centered. In any case, if you will see your footage at the corner, have center turned on. So in other words, now we can see, okay, we have extra room for it,
Cool.
for us to use as a clean plate for the corresponding frames. Yeah, so okay,
Awesome.
let's go back to the tracker to check whether have we created enough canvas. So okay, maybe this frame might be a bit tight, but it should be still fine. as long as the original plate doesn't go outside the format, we should be good. So next thing we need to do is to flip this process. So what we can do is you can copy the reformat over or just have a new reformat after we stabilize. So this is stabilized, this is match move. So we need to put back the exact same motion. So frame 1 should be, now we see our footage back in the center as compared to the stabilized where it's kind of all over the place.
Yeah, it looks much better now.
Mm-hmm.
Looks like we can see like the whole plate and start painting on that. Yeah.
Yeah, so from here, the reformat should set back to our root format. So if we look to here, and make sure we are still not resizing anything else, you will be changing the pixels or making them bigger or smaller. So this is one of the solutions we have. And make sure we check again. Always check whether your stabilization is causing you any problem, because one common mistake is that our reference frame is different. Now that I have my stabilization at frame 1, make sure your match move tracker is also at frame 1. Let's say I will have it at frame 5. You see, you have issues. So this is one of the common issues that we will face. The other solution I would like to suggest is having, let's say, instead of using reformat, what can we do? Let's quickly copy this over so that we can compare the two results later on. Okay, so essentially, other than creating a canvas, what we can do is to shrink down the footage. If you are not very familiar with the reformat node, we can always use a transform and just create some extra canvas in a certain way by scaling down your footage. So let's say before we decide on the scale, the value for the scale, we can choose like a frame that is kind of the biggest movement or the worst offender where you have something that goes out of the frame the most. I'm guessing maybe something like frame 23. So using this as a benchmark, we can scale the footage down. So something like that. So with this,
nice and simple, right?
yeah. So we have the footage stabilized, and we can make full use of the entire scan itself. So to make things easier to flip things around, sometimes we want to keep this value kind of live and linked, because the main thing is, now that I have made my judgment, 23 is the frame that I want, that it goes out the most, but sometimes it can be other frames that I miss out. So what you can do is, during the process where we put back the original scale, we can link these values together, copy, link, and put it on the corresponding. Oh, I just did copy twice. No, you're not supposed to copy twice. Copy once and paste it over. Are they linked? What's going on? Copy, link. Come over here. Paste, relative. Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, so it's working now. Now we see the link. So one very simple thing we need to do is, for the second transform node, turn on the invert. So this will allow us to basically do what the reformat is doing. We have some issues with extra bounding box, but it should be fine for now. Ultimately, we will get the paint strokes out individually instead of slapping the entire footage over our plate. So that will be the next part of what we're going to talk about.
Cool.
So yeah,
all right.
Back to you, Carlos.
So now we solved the format issue. We have everything available inside our canvas, and we've just proved that we can revert that back. It's always nice to have that proof of concept, right? So you can know that by the end, the shot is going to be fine. It's going to be finished, and there's no issues. Cool. What can I show you next? A nice way for you to have a generic idea of how much work is involved in this Dustbust is going to have to, it can be something called a time echo, right? If I plug in a time echo and I give him exactly like 81 frames, you can start seeing my shot building up and all those marks, all those dust hits being combined. Okay, since my footage is stabilized, you can do this. You'll start seeing a lot of smearing, but this is because you are maxing out all of these frames. Okay, but by the very end, look at this. You can see pretty much all the hits that you are having here. Okay, and this acts like a sanity check, so you can always see if you missed any of the dust hits. Okay, this is pretty because in this footage this has like a nice camera shake, but it's still locked in there. If the camera is just moving around, you're not going to be able to do this, of course, right?
Mhm.
The footage
Yep.
has to be stabilized. Cool. All right. So what do we do next? Well, we need to start. We need to start our paint, right? And to do that, I'm gonna create just a paint node. And now I need, remember the idea of stealing from the adjacent frames, right? Now that everything is stabilized, I'm going to do 2 time offsets. So the first time offset, I'm going to choose an offset of 1. And this, I can label this as 1 frame before. Cool. And now I can copy, paste, and the second one is going to be -1, and the label is going to be 1 frame after. Cool. So now I have these two. Of course, you can create as many as you want. If you want 2 frames before, 2 frames after, you can create that. So we are just setting up the tone so we can choose from this. Okay. And of course, there's other methods to do this that the JE will elaborate
Mhm.
after. So let me plug in the background 1 to the 1 frame before. Let me plug in the background 2 to 1 frame after, and we have everything pretty much ready for us to start. So I'm going to choose reveal in our paint tools, and now I can literally choose from background 1 or background 2. If we are on frame 1, of course we cannot use the frame before. We're going to have to use the frame after. So I'm going to choose background 2, and I can start painting this. Okay, there it goes. And if I choose, start going through all the frames, look, I have here, not a problem. Remember, you should always check with the previous frame or the frame after for you to see the dust hits happening and popping. Okay, so don't just judge what you believe is just 1 frame, because you might mistake that with just grain. Okay, so be very careful when you decide and when you judge what is dust and what is grain. Okay, so we've done a few, and I want to highlight something that we haven't figured out yet, which is, remember what we did on this first frame. Now have a look what happens when I move to frame 2. Okay, what do we have here? It's almost like a static patch of grain, because we
Yeah,
are
it's
simply,
frozen.
yeah, it's frozen. It looks like it's stuck in there, like a little patch that got stuck in our picture. This is because I'm
Mhm.
stealing information from the frame ahead. Okay, and
Yep.
this is going to look like it's being glued to that point. So we don't want this to happen, and the only solution for us to fix this is going to have to be through a denoise and a regrain process, right?
Mm.
All right, so let me quickly do it. Like, our idea on this exercise is not to show you how to denoise and how to degrain. So let's quickly do something quick and dirty. Okay, So I'm gonna create a denoise. I'm gonna choose. Let me just go to this tool over here. Let me just choose a nice area that is quite noisy. Okay. We can just simply increase this a bit more. We don't want to go too further with this. Of course, we could use other tools that are on the market to do proper denoise, and the results are going to be better. We will take care of that in a different episode. All right. So with this done, I'm just gonna write. Remember that you shouldn't have your denoises live because it will slow down your computer. So write this, and I believe that I have here my denoise. Yeah, I have this already previously rendered. Remember again, cooking show. So
Yeah,
so
you have another dish already coming out from the oven before you put it in.
uh, and I can literally replace this Control and Shift, and now I have my denoised coming out of there. Cool. I'm going to use my denoise, and of course, by the very end, I want to use just the bit that I've painted to put it back on top of my original plate. Cool. So to do
Mm.
that, my current alpha, you see that is pure white. Okay, we want to use a better way of cutting out our paint strokes. So in my Roto Paint node, I can expand the advanced tab that we have here, this little triangle, and I can choose my output mask to be alpha. Okay, so now you will see that my paint stroke shows up in there. Cool. So what I can do next is going to be pre-mult, and now I have my little patch available, so I can revert the tracker, revert the format, and then simply merging it back on top of our original plate. Okay, and now we have this problem solved. Of course, we're gonna need to do our regrain process back on, but I'm more worried for now in something that regards to our alpha. Okay, remember that when we are painting this, our softness is gonna help to kind of blend the edges of our paint with our footage. But when we want this to be put back on top of our plate, especially when we are doing any kind of regrain process, we don't want any kind of softness happening in there. Okay, so to do that, I'm gonna manipulate a bit of this alpha by simply grading it, choosing my channel to alpha, and then I'm gonna blow out this with a white point. Remember that this is gonna create some really, really high values. We don't want any of that, and we want to clamp. No problems clamping here because it's an alpha, it's 8 bits. So you can clamp this picture, it's black and white or shades of gray, and there's no issue with that. Cool. So now when we pre-mult, we have something a bit more neat and tidy. Cool. So we go back, we do our reformat, and boom. Now we have a nice and not soft patch. Cool.
Yep.
All right. Tell me, Jay.
So, of course, the next issue will be to add back the grain. But before we touch on that, I believe while looking at what we are sharing, people might be thinking, what if I'm going to use a few frames after a few frames before?
Mhm.
My new script is going to be quite crazy. Yeah. So other than doing that, Nuke have a nice solution. So maybe let me share my screen.
Cool.
Yeah, so within the RotoPaint node, right, what we can do is to amend this value over here. So essentially, -1 would be using the frame before and having it to be 1 will be the frame after. If you were to look closely at my cursor, you see that nice little arrow that gives you a hint. But unfortunately, they only tell you like is whether it's before or after. Even if I were to change to 3, this doesn't like tell me whether it's 3 frames before. So might be a good implementation, next time they will include a small number inside.
Yeah.
Yeah. So okay. So what I was trying to say just now, instead of having a few other time offset, like okay, this one is 2, then I have to rename 2 after, then I'll connect this with BG3. Then imagine if let's say the short is a lot more complicated, you see your tree will be like,
Yeah, it's going to be
and it
big.
might not be the most efficient way to get it done. So of course, later on we will show the other solution, but let's talk about the grain first. So a very quick trick to add back grain is to simply understanding the merge node. For example, there's so many operations with the merge node. One of my favorite one will be the divide. So setting the plate, which is the scan. This is just a postage stamp. So if I were to use the B as the scan and the A as the denoise, essentially you are dividing these two using the plate to get the grain, because the only difference between these two, if we look closely, is the grain.
It's going to be the grain, right? Almost like a difference.
Yep.
Yeah.
It's almost like a different, but the math behind it, we will definitely have an episode to talk about merge itself. It's a very simple, but actually a node that is very powerful, where or very basic, that you need to understand to help you along your journey as a prep artist or even as a compositor. So looking at what values I'm getting in the divide, like, oh, it's just a blown out image. What can I use this for? But actually, if you to crank it down, the gamma, see,
There it goes.
this is the grain, the exact same grain that is on the footage itself. So with this information, we can quickly use a multiply. Take note, it's a multiply from the merge, not the multiply that is this.
Yeah.
So make sure you use the right one. So B being our B pipe, and having to add this back. What's happening? Oh, we are adding grain on top of here, but also affecting whatever that's outside.
Yeah.
So what we want to do is, since we have a nice mask that we have achieved just now, have this linked together. Of course, many other artists would use many different methods. I myself would use a key mix sometimes to have it neater. So okay,
I think you plug in
this is
A2.
wrong.
Yeah.
Yes. So
it's always the design process, right?
So A is always supposed to come from left, and the mask is always come from here. So your script organization will be very important as you go along your career doing paint, doing com and stuff like that. So here, essentially we are using the mask, which is this, and getting the grain just on this area. So if we compare this with the actual plate itself, this is where the QC is done. Of course, it can be improved where the patch can be the area we affect can be much smaller, but this is just a demo of the technique.
Yeah.
And sometimes you see we're not exactly getting back the exact same grain. So sometimes just go on to switch the input from your denoise and your scan. You should be able to get the correct one. This is the results that we are looking at.
So I always need to try both. I know you have a nice mnemonic for that to have it right on the first go, but I always plug in one and the other, and I never get it on the first time.
Yeah, but it's fine as long as you know where the issue is. Usually it's the divide node, not the multiply node, because you can't be adding on top of this, and this will eventually become our B pipe. So it's the where we kind of get the results of the grain that's flip around. That's why it's causing like a I wouldn't say mirror image. It's identical, but somehow the pattern is inverted. Yeah.
So basically, the divide node is dependent on the inputs that you have in there. It will give different results, but the
Mm-hmm.
multiplication, it doesn't matter. You multiply one or the other, and it's gonna be the result is gonna be always the same if you switch around the inputs.
Yep.
Cool, man.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, this is very interesting. Simple solution that kind of uh, gives us a nice introduction to Dustbust and shows us a nice and easy way to have information from ahead or behind. I was thinking if we have the luxury of having access to another package like Silhouette. Could we do this maybe a bit faster, or having the tools in there that can ease this problem?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. Having the age of paint software dedicated for you to just do paint is gonna be a lot faster. Essentially because you are caching the frames as well. In
Cool.
new, when you move back and forth, it takes. Now we are working with a HD footage. Imagine you're doing dust bus for 4K footage, 8K footage.
Oh my
Uh,
goodness.
uh, we even had to split
Yeah.
16K footage, remember, into different parts
I
to
remember
get
doing
that
that.
just dust bus done.
Cool, man.
Yes. Mm.
Shall I show how to do this in Silhouette quickly?
Yes, show the magic.
All right. So let me share my screen over here. So I already brought the our denoise the footage over here. Remember that we still gonna have to do the re-rend process in Nuke. We don't want to focus on that today. We just want to show you how could Silhouette approach this problem in probably an easier way in terms of setup. So if you bring a tracker node, you can choose the Mocha tracker and then create a spline, and you can just put the spline wherever you think it's gonna give a nice area that is clear out of people moving. So that's why I chose the top part. Cool. And with this tracker, after you do this tracker, you're gonna be able to stabilize through this layer. So have a look at that. Kind of similar result that you have in Nuke after you have multiple point trackers. But this way is using the magic of the voodoo that I love from our Mocha algorithm. And we have here a nice stabilized layer. So what I need to do is just copy, Control C or Command C, copy this layer into a paint node. So I'm going to bring paint node over here. I'm going to plug it in, and I'm going to paste. Control V. I'm going to paste this layer. Remember that when you paste this layer, you can always try and turn on this little checkbox over here. This will enable something very interesting on the clone tool, which is enabling the source match move. Okay, this is going to be the game changer. Remember that we want to paint stabilized so we can steal from frames ahead and behind, right? So let's do a quick setup. Remember when in Nuke we are doing the time offset and choosing 1 and -1. We can quickly set up the same thing here in Silhouette. Okay, let's say that I am in frame 30. Okay, what I'm going to do is I'm going to choose frame 29, and I'm going to save this on preset number 1. And now I'm going to choose frame 31, and I'm going to save these as preset number 2. Okay, and I could carry on doing this with 2 frames behind, 2 frames ahead. Cool. So now you know that I can choose frames ahead or behind by just simply changing the presets. Cool. And now is as simple as let's control. Cool. As start painting. Right now, remember, if I start painting, this is not going to be a frame that is lined up. Okay, I'm just exaggerating here for you to see that this frame is not lined up. Okay, so what we need to do, we're going to use this layer that we tracked and be stabilized, and we're going to choose source match move. So with this source match move, you're going to be able to paint, and it's absolutely lined up. Okay, you can see clearly here. look, if I choose source match move, this frame is not going to be lined up. If I choose source match move, automatically it uses the stabilization from my tracker that is contained in this layer, and it will, boom, suddenly lined up. And this is valid through any frame that you want to go through. Okay, so let's do just a couple more hits. So let's say that here I wanted to paint from one frame ahead. Okay, choose preset number 2, and you can do source match move, and then paint. Okay, you can see nice like the our offset happening in our gizmo,
Yep.
and this is the beauty of Silhouette. Okay, all the tools and all the presets are done to help you quickly do this paint. All right, look at that, how simple. Basically, in Nuke, if I need to do like a long setup in Silhouette, I already painted half of the frames before I do the setup. Now the thing is, you might not have the luxury of having access to a dedicated paint suite. Okay, so
Exactly.
yeah, you always need to know how to do this in all the packages. Okay, we want to be quite like software agnostic here. We want to show you what is the best tool for the right time, but definitely give you several options,
Mm-hmm.
and definitely this would be for me the fastest one, being the
Mm.
case that I have both available. Right,
Yeah,
cool.
that's the thing, right? We might not have the luxury to have both softwares, or even sometimes you're working in a smaller studio. Usually the go-to software will be Nuke because it allows most of the functions to be done.
Yeah,
Mm.
cool. All right, I think we have this topic covered. Of course,
Yep.
we talked about several things here that we would like to develop further in different episodes, like regrain, on how to transfer from Silhouette into Nuke. We're going to be going deep into these subjects. Okay, today the
Mm.
idea is just to show you different ways of approaching Dustbust, not just as a simplistic way of just clone paint with the same frame, but actually thinking a bit deeper and smarter, and trying to save some valuable time in this task. Usually we have like what, half a day to do this task.
Yeah, the usual way that we kind of beat the time is like what 50 frames is half a day. So
Yeah.
that's the speed that we are looking at.
Cool. All right, I think it's a wrap. Remember
Mm-hmm.
to subscribe to our Patreon, or keep subscribing. If you're watching this, you're already a patron. So keep supporting us and helping us. If you like this subject, tell us more about what you would like to see from us, and we'll slowly go through that. Cool.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
Thank
Bye
you.
bye, Jay. See you later.
Bye
Bye
bye.
bye.
See you.